And Biro, do you want to just give a quick intro to yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Well, first of all, I'm super excited to join this. I think this is one of the first programs like this that I'm um, speaking at, talking to you at. I'm Biro. I'm originally from Romania, moved to UK back in 2011. Been an entrepreneur since, since I know myself. I started my first company when I was 17. Failed a bunch of them. 36 now. And I have a technical background. I used to be a software engineer at one point and had my exit last year. Actually, in a couple of days, it's going to be 1 year since we transacted. And this was my first, I would say, proper successful business out of plenty of failures. My background with this business is in B2B project management software. I was building Atlassian extensions, apps, and I had a co-founder as well. Post my exit, I do angel investing. I'm part of a syndicate here in Southeast. I'm in Brighton. And I also started a initiative, a podcast in a community called Misfit Founders that focuses on talking about all of the challenges and those times we feel out of place as founders, with the main audience being aspiring and new founders, startup founders. That's a bit about myself.
Awesome. So congratulations on almost getting to a year post-exit and for the exit itself. We're going to talk a little bit about that and some of your learnings on that journey to start with. And then we're going to dive into some of the other things that you just covered in that intro. So is it Gexo, the business that exited? Yeah. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the whole journey, which I get is quite vague, from startup to exit, and especially if there's anything that you were measuring in terms of KPIs or growth that you used as part of the narrative, and like whether the exit was it intentional or did it just come about because someone approached you during a fundraise? Like, what's the whole story?
Yeah, sure. I love talking about this. I talk about this all the time on my podcast, and also I mentor quite a few founders, and I always introduce our story. So again, as I mentioned, I've tried and failed quite a few businesses. When I moved to UK, I spent the first 3 years in UK just freelancing, building WordPress websites for customers on Upwork, and in parallel trying to start a variety of SaaS businesses. Back then, SaaS was picking up, and I wanted to make money while I was sleeping, in a sense. Like people keep on saying, nothing really stuck, and that was because I was missing quite significant components of the journey of being a founder. I knew how to code, I knew how to build beautiful interfaces and applications, but I knew nothing about customer research. I knew nothing about marketing, sales, or anything like that. Then I got a job in London as a software engineer. I was there around 5 years. I managed to learn a bit on how to work with people, the things that work, how to build a proper product, and all of those things helped me with my business, Jigsaw. At the previous job, I also met my co-founder and also life partner, Nikki. We decided that we wanted to work on something cool outside working hours, and that was I would say, the motivation, the catalyst for starting building something, which eventually we called our company Jigsaw. The motivation was pretty much, we want to work on cool apps, build some apps, and also we wanted to work together because in the previous workplace we were working really well together, and we decided that it would be cool for us to build an app. So that was the initial. It wasn't, there's a lot of stories of, oh, I want to solve this problem, and that's awesome, but that wasn't us. For us was, we wanted to build something together. And when we decided to take this full time, which was, so we started in 2018, and at the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we decided to go full time. Until then, we were working evenings, weekends. We didn't have holidays. We were just working 9 to 5, the job that we had, and all of the rest of the hours of the day we were working on our business, which was quite hard, but I think we were quite passionate and nerdy. Even today, I don't really spend my free time with anything else but stuff that's interesting to me as business or professional passions. So when we decided to go full time, this was in at the end of 2019, and we we really wanted to build our own, I would say, playground in a sense of a workplace. That was the motivation, and I think that was also inspired in a way to me by the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, if anyone read that, where he says, put the right people on the bus and then set the direction. That's exactly what we've done. We didn't really knew what the future of Jigsaw will be or what we wanted to do. We continued to build full extensions for Jira, if anyone worked with Jira and Atlassian products, and get to work with great people. So that was the start of it. So that's the initial part. What would you like me to talk about next? That's how we kind of started.
I guess the exit part of the story. Well, I guess is there any kind of other key milestones that happened?
Oh yes, plenty.
You knew that you
plenty.
were getting to product market fit, or anything that happened in that journey that you think would be relevant or useful for the founders here to know, and then kind of what happened with the exit.
I would say the first significant moment was when we managed to decipher what would make our product pick up, grow, and successful. Because when we built our initial product, the way we built our product was I had a need internally at the previous company, and we decided to take this off work and build a product that we could potentially use internally as well. And that was a release orchestration and release management slash roadmap solution, because I was managing all the releases of the software that we were building at the previous company. And the way I built it with my partner was just how I pictured it and the needs and the wants that I had. And it's safe to say that that didn't pick up much when we launched it on the Atlassian marketplace, because it was what I wanted. We didn't do any research on what other release managers like myself and project managers like myself would want. And when we launched it, it took us, so we launched in September, October 2018, and we actually got our first payment only in January 2019, which was $60 per month subscription, which I was super happy because I got to pay for the AWS servers that we were using, but it took a long time, and we were getting a lot of rejection and a lot of feedback in the demo calls that we were doing. And then we had a moment where we were thinking, well, should we just fold this idea of this company and just keep this product internally? I'll use it and that's it, because I don't see anything picking up just yet. And at that moment, we decided to give it another try. We scratch our heads on how would we make this a desirable and useful, valuable product. And there were two things. One, we gathered all of the feedback and all of the thoughts that the random demos that we've done prior to that. And two, we started doing research in communities, the Atlassian user communities, to see what people say about release management in Jira, because it was a very basic feature that they had, and we wanted to amplify that with our product. And we started seeing a lot of feature requests that Jira users had that were asking in these communities that were there for years that Atlassian wasn't picking up. So we decided, well, why not we implement it in our app? Because it seems like there's demand for this. Atlassian is too big and too busy to do anything about it. So let's just build this. So that's what we've done. We've implemented a couple of features that we call them our hook features, which were things that they weren't solved and there were frustrations around that in the community. And then we started messaging on these forum posts, hey, I know you're frustrated about Atlassian not implementing this, but if you want to pay for a feature like that, we actually have it and it's seamless, it's part of the Jira experience. You don't have to use an external product or implement anything else. So I think that's what helped us pick up we've delivered those features in spring 2019, and by summer 2019, we were seeing a significant pickup. End of summer, we were at $1,000 monthly recurring revenue, and things were going well. And that followed with the next significant moment in our decision making, in our journey, which was up until then, Nikki and I, my partner and I, were just doing this as a fun project. We weren't, I would say, we didn't yet decided to go full time and full focus on our Jigsaw company. And at that point, when we seen the pickup, we already had almost 2 years in this developer ecosystem. We decided we actually quite like this and we would like to focus full time. And then all of our energy went into, okay, how can we not have to work and focus on this?
And then how long, I guess, between then and the exit conversations that you had, and how did all of that come about?
Well, it took a while because, I mean, in autumn 2019, we started growing significant, so much so that by December 2019, we were at $5,000 monthly recurring revenue. And we started conversations for seed investment in order to be able to focus on the business. And luckily, by that point, we made quite a few friends in this Atlassian ecosystem, other founders, business owners like ourselves that were building apps for Jira, for Confluence, for Atlassian products. And yeah, we just decided to partner up with one of them that wanted to have a stake in what we were doing because they liked us, they liked our products, and they wanted to invest more in smaller companies. So that's how we got our seed investment, which was around $200,000. And that helped us quit our jobs and focus full time on the journey. We're also extremely lucky. And I keep on talking about this on the podcast as well. Luck is, and being the right place at the right time is a big factor. Although people don't want to recognize it. It is about your skills and your abilities and so on and your connections, but luck has a big factor. And I'll give you a very, very short, I'll try to keep it short. We got our seed investment in February 2020. This was a month before the pandemic really hit. Not only that, I didn't have to quit my job because the company that I was working for in the exact same time was acquired by Accenture, a company that I was working for in London. And I was actually their first employee. There are 160 employees. At that point, I had share options. So I got to, rather than quitting my job and losing those share options, I got to exercise my share options as well. So everything, this perfect storm happened just before the pandemic hit. And then over the pandemic, we were able to just focus on our business, figure out marketing, figure out sales and all of these things. So that was a very, very lucky bit of ours. And then we started hiring from that point onwards. Winter 2021, so January 2021, February 2021, we had another investment round, this time from Atlassian themselves. So they provided a loan note for $250,000, again, because we were growing fast and they really liked what we were doing. And then just around that time, 2021, Nikki and I decided that eventually we will sell. And the reason why we decided that was because, a couple of things. One, the Atlassian ecosystem was getting more intense for partners like ourselves. Anywhere where there's money, there will be a lot more competition, a lot more VC that puts a lot of resources in companies. So you start to compete with a lot of big competitors, fierce competition, and so on. We had some of our apps cloned, just blatantly cloned and put on the marketplace. And there's really nothing that we could do much about it. And even Atlassian didn't really want to dispute any of that because it was still good business to them. And so we decided, well, let's go back to why we started this business. Because we wanted our own playground and we wanted to build our own culture and have this this workplace where we can thrive and learn and evolve as professionals. And it was becoming very stressful at one point and intense. And in order for us to accelerate and scale and become I would say a decent competitor in that space, we knew that in the next couple of years, we needed to take a couple of steps that we might not be comfortable with. That's perfectly okay, right? Scaling, going VC, Series A, B, C, and so on, it's not for everyone, and it wasn't for us. We had completely different values in that sense. So we decided that the best way for us to continue to thrive and work with cool people and continue to develop our skills is for us to be part of a bigger team. So that was one of the big factors. And then also Nikki and I, my partner is say an immigrant as well, came to UK quite a few years ago. We don't have anything much on our names and we wanted to settle down, to get a house, to be able to construct our life in UK and not be renters, backpackers, and all of these things. So that was the second factor in this whole story. And from there onwards, early 2021, we've positioned a lot of the decisions that we're making. Actually, what I'm trying to say, a lot of the decisions that we made were in order to position ourselves for a sale. And people say, well, if you want to sell, don't act like it, just continue and grow your business normally, because then you'll be a lot more appealing to acquirers and partners versus if you focus on the acquisition part. But I would say it's a bit of a gray area, right? Because at the end of the day, if you know you want to have an exit, there are certain decisions that you want to take in order to be more appealing to a company that acquires you. And, for example, we decided to keep our business super clean and not get into a lot of contractual partnerships that will make the sale a lot more complicated. So we had opportunities to buy or partner up with other app makers and do a revenue split and things like this. We decided to stay away from that because we knew that when we get to sell, that's going to complicate significantly our exit. So, and then there's other things like pushing more on building our brand and our positioning online and in the ecosystem so that we are a lot more of an appealing proposition for the buyer and not make it just about our annual recurring revenue and our financial growth, but make it about the marketing and the brand and all of these things, which pan out because we got a premium because of that, because our buyer wanted Nikki and I, which were kind of became a bit of, I would say, influencers and figures in the Atlassian partner ecosystem. So that was another aspect of it. So yeah, so for us, I'm not ashamed to say this, we positioned our business to be acquired as well.
And then when did the conversations actually start happening? Did you start having your conversations with the acquirer as you approaching them, or you always had a relationship with them? And did it just work with you updating on your progress, or did they know what your intentions were from the beginning?
So in our ecosystem, there's a lot of consolidation happening. There's a lot of bigger vendors that have the financial means to acquire more companies in order to increase their ARR, so that they have a bigger, better position when they exit themselves, or if they want to go IPO and so on. So for example, the buyer, the company that bought us, wants to IPO in a couple of years. So this is a fast way for them to add revenue in order to do that. And yeah, so there were options out there. We befriended a lot of companies and a lot of founders and leadership in a lot of these companies, because we were doing a lot of events and marketing initiatives that involved them as well. So then by the time we were ready for discussions, which was in February, March 2022, we already had a lot of friends. So it wasn't difficult. Not only that, but two of the companies that were actually bidding towards the end to acquire us asked us several times since 2021 up until we were ready whether we would want to partner up and get acquired. So we already knew that we have these options available. So then we only had to signal that we're ready. And we didn't even do it directly, in a sense. Like, that was another, like, we didn't go to them and said, hey, we want to get acquired. There were conversations with other partners about, the fact that we're now ramping up for an acquisition that reached our target buyers, and they came to us and started discussion. So I think we also tried to be quite tactful, because we were a very desired brand at that point in the Atlassian ecosystem, and we didn't want it to look like we were too desperate to sell, in a sense, by knocking at people's doors.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you think that, like you said about the brand position and you and Nikki as kind of influencers within the space, do you think that was equally as important as kind of growth and metrics and revenue, or more important, or how do you think it balances out for people that are thinking of this themselves?
Well, I think it was, for us, it was equally important, because we were making a million annual recurring revenue when we got acquired. There was 13 of us in the team. And of course, that contributed to the times of the acquisition of the ARR. And we also had really good growth and stable growth. But I think the reason why in negotiations, we were able to push back a bit around the terms and the figures was because it was Nikki and I and the Jigsaw brand, and because the buyers wanted to emulate some of the stuff that we were doing around marketing and brand building at Jigsaw in their own company.
Yeah, that makes sense. So did you end up working for them for like 12 months or 18 months or something as part of the deal?
Yeah, so it's 24 months. So I still have a year of knowledge transfer. And that's basically what it is, knowledge transfer. So that was the other super nice factor, was that we didn't have any performance milestones. The whole idea is for me and my co-founder Nikki to be there for 24 months and do a good job in transferring some of the knowledge that we have around brand building and marketing content and all of these things. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay. If anybody has any other questions on that part of the journey, Mark, I can see that you just raised your hand. So do you want to ask, and then we'll move on to some of the other stuff?
Oh, you can keep going, Purdy. I'm happy to jump in after you've finished. Okay. I can do general Q&A.
Yeah, cool. So I wanted to talk a bit more about the angel investment side. And tying in with your experience, so not only your experience with Gexo, but any previous startups or previous failures or learnings that you've had along your startup journey in general, how has that tied into your investment thesis? Like, when you're reviewing other startups, how do you kind of know when someone's onto something, or what good looks like for you?
Well, it's an interesting question because it's split in multiple strands of information, I would say. So number one, I would say I'm looking nowadays as my investment thesis to invest in startups and businesses that have a female representation as founder or leadership. And the reason why is because, my partner, right? I think I've gotten to learn a lot from her in these 4 years of working together in the business. I've also seen we've been through some situations where it was very evident that there is bias there. And I decided that I wanted to do my part, and help as much as I can, because we have to. I think, it's unrealistic to applaud from the sidelines and encourage, but actually not take part in helping getting rid of this bias. So that's one of the reasons why I have this investment thesis where I invest in female founders or co-founders or part of the leadership in startups. That's the reason why my podcast is so diverse and I bring a variety of voices in the discussion, is because I want to do my part. I've seen my partner having to deal with bias around who she is and credibility and things like that when we were perfectly equal in the business. Yet I would always get preferential treatment from how people would talk to me, the things that I would be able to get access to, and so on. And her on the other side would always had a tougher life and been seen a lot more with a skeptical eye, I would say. So that's one. The other bit, so when I came into investment, I was quite naive, I would say, because I was so excited and eager to back founders that had a lot of experience in the field that they were starting a startup. But then I've realized that that's a bit odd, because there's a lot of founders that are just getting started that don't have the decades of experience and knowledge in a field, that are more than capable and able to get into an industry and be able to produce change and so on. But I was putting a lot of the traits of experience and age and all of these things as important traits for me to consider when investing. And I also thought of myself, because I am at a inflection point in my career where I think I'm moving away from, at least for a while, from SaaS software, and probably my next business is going to be more in the creative space. And I realized, well, based on my thesis, I wouldn't invest in myself. And that was quite sad for me, because I realized, well, that means that there's probably going to be people, angel investors out there, that will reject me because, even though I have this wealth of experience in business in this area, what do I know about this other area? Except that I'm passionate about it and I want to solve a problem. So I had to rethink that approach. And I think I'm a lot more focused nowadays in the founders themselves, their character traits, what drives them, motivates them, their backgrounds, and so on, rather than experience in the industry that they're getting started with.
Yeah. So if you're trying to, this is probably a difficult question, but if you're trying to optimize for founder motivation or passion, or desire to solve a problem if there is no direct experience in the industry that they're selling into? What can that founder do if they were pitching you to prove that they were the right founder to back?
I think it's the way they think about solving those gaps, right? So, well, I'm learning about this area, and I've started looking and talking to this community or this group of people. Oh, and I have this mentor that is bringing me information from this area. Or so basically, the awareness of having the lack of knowledge and how they plan to address that lack of knowledge. I think that's important. And that also shows, I would say, maturity in thinking, because I've also seen a lot of founders that think they don't need help, they don't need advice, they don't need anyone around, they only need money to put in sales and marketing, which from my perspective is, especially when you come with a pitch deck that says, I'm going to invest 20% in sales and marketing, and there's no information whatsoever on how you're going to get to penetrate that industry or market and make yourself suitable in a sense. So I think that's for me. I always tell founders that networking is a very powerful I would say skill trait that you can have, because that's how we got successful. Our seed investment came from a friend of ours that we met at an event. Us getting acquired again was by a friend of ours, because we were networking, we were doing cross-marketing opportunities. We got our brand quite reputable because we were networking, events, social media, and all of these things, and we had quite a decent size audience, and also group of friends that we were in touch with. So I think that's very important on how you think about the lacks or the gaps that you have in knowledge or skills or connections. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's been other investors who've said a similar thing, which is, if you don't go in with an understanding of the problem necessarily because you don't come from industry, you can still do as much research as you possibly can and speak to all of the potential customers, and then really have an in-depth understanding of the problem that way, rather than experiencing it yourself, or coming from the industry, and then you can prove it. I want to talk a little bit about misfit founders, and then we'll go to Q&A with the audience. So I guess, why did you start the podcast, and why is it important to you? And then also, are you seeing it like a business in terms of the fact that you have to do branding and kind of acquire new listeners? And there's a lot of different skills, I think, that go into podcasting, which is similar to starting a business.
Yeah, so I've been mentoring and advising startups for quite a while, since I had the confidence that I have a bit of knowledge in certain things. And I've always mentored or advised people that were maybe 1, 2, 3 steps behind, in a sense, that were on the same path or similar path. And I really enjoyed that. It gives me significant satisfaction. I would say it's ego driven, because it makes me feel good when I get the type of feedback that I get from people saying, oh, this piece of content helped me, or the conversation with you, I've done this or that. And I also have a couple of now friends in the founder world where I've helped them before me exiting and so on. I helped them partner up and get seed investment and get acquired and so on. And just it just motivates me to see people succeeding. So after the exit, I wanted to double down on helping founders because of 2 reasons. One, that that self thing, that I'm gratitude that I'm getting from helping people, and 2, I know how much I've struggled. Like I'm as I mentioned, I'm 36. I've sold my business at 35, which I ran for 4 years successfully, right? So I actually made a successful business in my 30s. I started my first business when I was 17. I kept on trying and failed for, over a decade. So there was a lot of pain and suffering at that stage of my life, and I'd like to help aspiring founders, future founders, to kind of arm them with some of the information, some of the challenges that I faced and other founders constantly face. Because I think we have a lot of initiatives and a lot of information out there that teaches you how to do A to B, or gives you some sort of blueprints. Some are valid, some not so much. But I wanted to come from a different angle, which is learn from other people's mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes and those challenges don't have an outcome, as in a positive outcome. It just happened. Just be aware of that stage of your career. How you deal with it is important as well, but not everything has a positive resolution. And I think that's what we need to learn and accept, because we have this attitude online and social and traditional media to talk about, our successes and our challenges, and here's how I overcome this challenge, and here's what I've learned from it, and this is how I became successful out of these challenges. But sometimes you also have issues and challenges that you go through that you don't necessarily know how to solve. And I want to bring more people like that on the podcast, because at the end of the day, I've been through it, and if I had something like this, I would maybe be a bit more calculated and maybe be a bit more aware of what it actually takes to build a business, because it's not easy. And a lot of the times we get into it with a false context, that because we see so many other people out there that rarely talk about the challenges, or just shallow. And it's about being vulnerable and sharing with others. And the show has been called so many times group therapy. I don't know if I hope that that's a good thing, at least, because people get to listen in and maybe not feel that alone in some of the challenges that they face. So that's the main. In terms of running it as a business, I think it's I can't really avoid that because I have an entrepreneur mindset. This is not one of those initiatives where I want to make a big buck out of it, roll out courses, this, that, and teach people how to know, because that I would be lying to myself. I don't feel like I am an extremely well put together role model for others. I feel that I have so many lacks still. I feel that I haven't achieved so many things. And all I can provide to the world at this time is a platform to talk about those challenges. I don't feel, maybe that's that misfit feeling, but I don't feel like I am entitled to do classes, for example. Or let me put together some classes under this brand and sell them out there, teach people how to do this or that. No. So I think, yes, I am building a brand with Misfit Founders. There will be sponsors of the podcast at one point. I'm looking to do more PR tours and get the show a bit more known. But that's, again, from the desire of having as big of a reach as possible, and positively impact aspiring founders. It would be great for the show to be self-sustained, but have other businesses and other ventures that I'm thinking of as profitable businesses in the future, not this.
Yeah. Last question from me, and then I'll hand over to Mark. What do you consider a misfit?
Well, a misfit, well, if I were to look at myself and actually, this is the reason why I got to this misfit word, to give you a bit of a context, was that I had all of these thoughts and feelings scattered, and I came together with my marketing team. This was before exiting Jigsaw. And we put together a bit of a brand definition, like personal brand definition. And the word misfit came out quite a lot. And that was because I've constantly put myself in a variety of circumstances where I didn't really feel like I belong. But I did do my best to overcome that feeling of imposter and try to make the best of learning and understanding those circumstances that I was in from a founder and entrepreneurship perspective. So I think in my mind, we're all misfit founders, because we all have, at every single stage of our journey, and it doesn't matter if you just started or, like myself, exited. I still have so many situations where I have no idea how to solve this, and I'm putting myself in a very difficult position for myself, and also have those dark thoughts. What if I don't succeed? What if this happens? What if I fail again? Because I failed so many times before. So, and I think we're all misfits. We all go through phases and challenges and feel out of place. And I think that's the definition to me. Feel out of place at times, be it at in a certain circumstance, initiative that you're trying to implement in your business, be it on a stage when you need to present in front of people, be it when you demo your product to a potential customer, be it in front of a investor wanting to raise some money. And I would say the only people that I wouldn't include in this this category are those that preach that they have the recipe to how to be a successful entrepreneur. There's plenty of bro podcasts out there that tell you how to make money. I can't stand them, and to be honest, I choose my guests quite carefully in that sense. Try to be as much as inclusive as possible, but you know, I don't want to have people on the show that are super confident and cocky and think that they solved all their challenges, and they don't have anything else left, because that's not true. That's just a facade. And I want people to be their true self in the Misfit Founders community or as guests on the podcast.
That makes complete sense. Mark.
Hi, Biro.
Hello.
Hi, really enjoyed that. I think I'm not alone when I relate to the misfit founders thing. I'm sure there's a bunch of other people in it. You know, imposter syndrome, all the rest of it could go on, but I won't use this as a founder therapy session. I feel like there's a lot of serendipity, and I'm so glad I joined the call. We're actually building a product that helps conduct faster discovery for digital teams, and then they can use this discovery to drive better decisions on the product roadmap. So actually Jira or Atlassian is probably our biggest target for an acquisition. So I'd love to know, with your product, right, you were very baked into that ecosystem and did a specific thing on the Atlassian marketplace. Now for us, we're looking at a ton of different integrations, not just Jira, but we could also send data to product board or design tools like Figma and stuff like this. So our remit is quite broad, and we're honestly just going to go with the market, right? Do whatever is the best for our users and the tools that they're using. So what are your thoughts on, if you seek a potential exit in whatever, 5-6 years time, and you're going a little bit broader in terms of the marketplace and the ecosystem that you're going to be involved with, do you think someone like Atlassian would still be interested even if you had like a broad remit of usage, or do you think that those kind of companies likely to be quite narrow and do a very specific thing for their own type of users personally?
No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think you have to be narrow. And I would actually say that there's a lot more examples of Atlassian acquiring platforms that have integrations with a variety of other vendors that might also be competitors of theirs, than acquiring apps from their marketplace. So there were a couple of apps that they acquired, but they partner up and acquire a lot more of the bigger. Like for example, Loom was the last acquisition that they had. They just acquired a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, Loom, and that had integrations and had its own ecosystem and such. So I don't think that matters, but it does matter the partnerships, the relationships that you make with these, because more often than not, the acquisitions come from, oh, this person at Loom or this group of people work closely with Atlassian to implement this and this and that, and then eventually they decided to come together and get acquired. So those are usually the where these acquisition opportunities come from making close relationships with people at those companies.
So the follow-up question is, how can we connect?
Well, you can just search for me on LinkedIn. It's Biro Florin. So you probably find me there.
Sounds good.
We can post that in the chat too. Jolie.
No worries.
Hey, hello. That was truly amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And especially when you are saying that you had so many failures before, you made a success. I think two questions. One is, when we are meeting investors, I had a startup kind of like in the past. I would potentially say that wasn't very successful. Would you think that it is actually good to talk about the previous experiences, even if it wasn't successful? And my second question is actually thinking your experience with Jigsaw is if I calculated this right, I think your first revenue until you launched it was 11 months. It's great. I mean, you are technical founders and you were able to put a product and also you had another job. I just wonder, for founders who maybe not from technical background and who don't have that long runway to prove that revenue and business models, do you have any suggestions? Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you. Those are really good questions. So on the first question, I would say, before becoming an angel investor, I would have said straight away, yeah, be honest, talk about it, tell the truth. As long as you've learned from that experience, it makes you stronger, it makes you, more resilient, you're more experienced, and that's what matters the most. The sad reality is now existing around angel investors groups is that angels are super analytical and judgmental at times, I would say. And I've seen people that will needle pick into absolutely anything. So I would say I see your past and your past failures as a benefit and as a positive trait, because that's where I come from. So I would say pick your angel investors and who you talk to, and talk to people that are open-minded and that are willing to see your experience, be it positive or negative, as a positive, right? That's one thing that I would say, because again, yeah, I've been in those circles, I've been in those rooms where we would listen to someone and there will be a lot of needle picking, and I honestly don't like that. I like to look at people's good sides and figure out if they would be able to succeed with something based on the traits and the character and what they're good at and so on. But when it comes to things like, oh, I failed in the past, I think I'm not the right person to say, I'll reject you for that. I'll probably be even more interested in what you're building right now. And then on the second question, That's actually a really good question. I think nowadays things are a lot easier, to be honest. With the introduction of AI and also no-code platforms, it makes it, in my mind, a lot easier to put things together that don't require a lot of I would say a lot of monetary financial resources and a lot of your time. It's still, at the end of the day, like we had full-time jobs, but we were working maybe 80, 90 hours per week in total with our full-time jobs. And I advise everyone, if you're not confident that you can keep your startup running for 12 months at least, I would say work on something, do consultancy, do something to be able to sustain yourself while also building your business, and be really good at structuring your time and your day, so that, because I've just had a founder on the podcast that was telling me of their early mistakes, and one of their early mistakes was that in order to fuel their product business, they've took consultancy work, but they didn't structure their time properly. So the consultancy business took over. And at the end of it, they regretted it because they didn't have enough time for the product. So like how you structure your time and your resources is important as well. But yeah, I'm just looking at AI tools, and like even for the podcast, I use a lot of AI tools to help with the edit, to help with a lot of things. Like it's a 2-hour show, it's edited, it's highly produced. The technology is completely different nowadays versus, sure, it really depends on the type of business that we're talking about. Because if you're in technology as a business, then maybe using no code might not be the right thing always. If you're building AI tools, again, you have APIs and you have things, but you might need to build your own machine learning algorithms, or you might need to do this and that. So it really depends. But I would say that's still, it's been a traditional way, but it's still the best way in my mind to be able to build something, is have another gig that can fuel all of these.
Great, thank you.
Darren.
Yeah, thanks once again, Purdy. Just really, really great, fantastic speaker lineup as always. Biro, really super insightful in terms of your journey, and it's interesting to hear that you've still got these elements and seeds of doubt, even though you've been successful. I found that quite fascinating. I've got a couple of questions. One is, how long have you got left of your 24 months? And secondly, do you still keep your hand in? I mean, you mentioned AI then in terms of the podcast. Are you still developing?
Yeah, so I have basically on 21st of December, it will be 12 months remaining, so halfway through. And in terms of developing, well, I am technical. I can pick up things quite easy, but not scripting, not engineering, I don't do that anymore. I think I try to leverage today's landscape of tooling and technology as much as possible. And with the introduction of AI and so many automation tools and so many things, I'm trying to use that. So I use Zapier quite a lot. I use a lot of tools that don't require me to code. I was also a functional engineer. I've never considered myself I've been hated by my team quite a lot because they had to refactor a lot of my codes. So I've never been like a brilliant architect when it comes to technology.
So just as a third question then, with you and your partner, who was the CEO, CTO role?
Yeah, so I was the CEO and the CTO in the early days, because I was engineering and building a lot of this. I also have AWS experience, so putting everything, all of our applications to the cloud in the early days. And she was CPO, Chief Product Officer. So she was taking all of the product decisions, testing, and I was building in the early days. Yeah.
Same as my wife and I. Interesting. Thank you.
No worries.
I'm going to ask, unless anyone has another question, feel free to raise your hand. I've got one last question to ask, which is just, I know, so Jake came in from Southeast Angels a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And talked a little bit about the community. But when it comes to co-investing, how much are you swayed by other people telling you that you should get involved in an investment? That's kind of part one of the question. Part two is what makes you get so excited that you want everyone in your angel community to also invest alongside you in something?
So I think I wouldn't necessarily call it swaying. I think when you're in a group of a syndicate or a group of angel investors that think alike, a lot of the questions will be, oh, I wanted to ask that. A lot of the thinking of what's valuable and how someone pitches, how they present their proposition and so on is alike as well. But I'm also very early in my journey as an angel investor, been for less than a year, almost a year now. I don't know if that's the best thing. I don't like echo chambers that much. I like diversity in thinking. I like people to pose a challenge. I like people to debate certain thinking of other angel investors. And to be honest, I try to do that as much as possible with my group. So much so that I become annoying sometimes because I'm trying to play the devil's advocate sometimes. In terms of what I like and what I again, I don't try to convince other angel investors. I think to me that's the wrong approach. Even though it's a syndicate, I don't think that we should basically try to influence ourselves too much. And that doesn't happen that much for us. As in, you have a pitch where there's 2, 3 out of 10 or 12 investors going with, and that's perfectly okay. Some of us think that has potential, and the founder is the right persona and personality and character and so on. So we decide to invest. Some might needle pick around their business a bit and say, I don't see how that's going to happen. But for me is again a lot more the founder traits that I put through and as an argument when we're talking about and debating around and again, debating is a strong word because it's not like we don't group invest. Every single investor invests whether they want or not. So we're not trying to convert others into investing. It's more of a, hey, this is why I'm investing, right? Yeah. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for joining us and for your honesty and sharing your story. I put your LinkedIn profile in the chat already, so anybody that wants to reach out, then feel free, and we'll let you go. Everybody else stick around because we've got some live pitch deck feedback. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you. I'm just going to stop recording.